What's up, guys? Welcome to the NFL First Look here on Roto Grinders. I am BritDevine, joined today by my co-host Chris Beermakersfan Prince and Paul Boggslite Arrington. We've got three big games here on Thanksgiving coming up, guys, so we're going to spend a lot of time talking these three games, a little Thanksgiving Day strategy I have lined up for you, and we're going to run through the rest of the games here. I'm going to start with you, Chris. How's it going, my man? Are you ready for Thanksgiving? You look like a guy. Your whole family is just humongous. How much turkey do you guys put away at Thanksgiving?
I actually spent Thanksgiving with the wife's family, so not as much as back in the day. But yes, it used to be a feast when I went home, and had a lot of big brothers. So yes, definitely looking forward to Thanksgiving. What's better? Spending the day with family, friends, watching football, and some huge, huge tournaments out there on Turkey Day. I love it.
Yeah, speaking of tournaments, we are sponsored by DraftKings. $600,000 tournament over there this week, guys, so make sure to get into that. And I'm going to tell you real quick, guys, if you want to play these huge tournaments on any site this week, get in now. They are all going to fill extremely early Thursday morning. The demand is crazy on Thanksgiving. That $600,000 easily is going to fill. They might even throw up another one. Anything over on FanDuel, that's going to fill. The demand is just crazy on Thanksgiving. Boggs, let's talk about you. Are you ready for Thanksgiving? I bet you had a good time this weekend at your at the Fantasy Aces Championship, real quick. Man.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. Still recovering, obviously, but no beer for me today. I've got some water in my hand, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. Just real quick, I want to give another shout out to Tip and Pick. Couldn't have been a greater guy that won. Really kind of talked with him, and the first time we met was out in that Roto Grinders party, and I gotta say, I was really surprised because he's always seems like a very cool, calm, collected guy.
Well, he can party.
But he was going wild when Odell Beckham put him ahead in that tournament. But yeah, it was a lot of excitement, a lot of fun, and congrats to all the other contestants as well.
Let's get right into these games, guys. We're going to spend a little more extra time on these Thursday games. We're going to talk a little strategy. First thing I want to bring up to you guys, I told you to get into these guys early. One thing I want to talk about is how to separate yourself from the field in these Thursday games. It's just three games, so there's going to be a lot of duplicate lineups, a lot of entrants. One thing I like to do on these Thursday games is instead of spending my full salary, I like to keep myself maybe an extra $500, $600, $700 into my lineup to make sure that I have something that looks a little bit different than a lot of the masses. There's going to be a lot of duplicate lineups in these leagues. Beer. What do you think about that strategy? And then let's get into this first game here. We've got the Bears at the Lions. Why don't you tell me what you think about the Lions?
First off, strategy, I love it. It's something I do as well. With only 3 games on the schedule and a huge tournament, I think there's 34,000 teams in it. There's only so many combinations you can make. And I know a math major's out there figuring there's millions of combinations. I get it. But realistically, you're going to see a lot of the same lineups. So I think that's a great strategy. Not using the full cap. Obviously you're going to have to think outside the box. So we'll definitely try to do that. So for Detroit, I think this is a game that Calvin Johnson is really going to get on track. Chicago, probably the worst defense in the league, to be honest, giving up about 27 points a game. This Detroit offense has really been sputtering, only getting field goals the last 2 games. But coming home, Thanksgiving, crowd's always fired up, and Detroit always seems to play well at home on Thanksgiving. So Calvin is definitely my main target here. I think Golden Tate is in play as well, and I think Stafford has a bounce-back game. I really think they're going to attack this team through the air, so that's what I'm focused on. The running back situation, still dicey. We don't know if Reggie Bush is going to play, so that throws a wrench in it as of now. If he's out, obviously gives a slight bump to Riddick, and I think Joique Bell makes for a good GPP play as well. Off the board, I think a good tight end play could be Eric Ebron. Chicago, horrible against the tight end position. He's a guy that hasn't shown much. Not a lot of people may be on him. Obviously, a 3-game slate will be a little bit higher than normal, but brings a lot of upside to the table. This kid's a great athlete, good in the red zone, so he's somebody to look at. Even a Brandon Pettigrew could be a guy a couple percent owned. If he can get in the end zone, pay off a cheap salary, I think that's the way to go. So the passing game, really what I'm focused on here. I like the Detroit defense as well. Cutler, we know, turns the ball over a ton, so I think they can force a few turnovers here, maybe take them back to the house. So I know they'll be a popular defense, but I think with good reason.
Yeah, they're the most expensive defense on DraftKings at 3,400, tied with the Eagles. There's a defense I like a little bit better. That's the last game of the night, the Niners. But I can't fault anyone for taking the Lions there. I do like. I mean, how can you not take Calvin Johnson at $7,000 on DraftKings? He's, it's 900 less than Des Bryant. He's going to be in so many lineups, guys. Makes you think you might want to fade him in one of these huge tournaments. He's going to be. What do you think his percent's going to be in this big tournament here?
I would guess.
And he's going to be well over 50%, right?
Yeah, which I think makes Golden Tate a pretty good play. He's only 400 cheaper. I think most would spend up and grab Calvin at 7,000. 66, I think Tate bounce back game. Remember, he was on Revis Island last week, so still had a pretty decent game. I think he'll obviously be the much lesser owned of the two. Still brings some good upside to the table, but definitely think Calvin's going to feast on this defense. So don't fade him completely. If you're running multiple lineups, I don't know if I'd have him in all of them.
Yeah, I like that Golden Tate kind of a swap if you're running a lot of lineups. He's going to be 15 to 20% owned, much lower owned. He's proven he can have some huge games. Just hasn't had that big game since Calvin's back. Boggs, let's go to the Chicago side of the ball. I gotta say, there's not too much I'm interested here, which means I think you could have some GPP plays here. The receivers for New England last week kind of showed that you can beat Detroit through the wide receivers. Does that have you on Brandon Marshall? Does that have you on Alshon Jeffrey at all?
Not particularly. I think if there's anyone that I do like in this game, it's Forte. Simply, because I expect Detroit, like you guys do, to get an early lead. But with the tough matchup, Forte's involved in the passing game, and if they're going to even want to be anywhere near, involved in this game and still in it by halftime, they're going to have to try and slow Detroit down. I mean, the guy's a usage monster, Forte. Never seems to come off the field. Is probably the most consistent running back all season up to this point. He's only really put to two or three duds, but is consistent as ever in that 25+ point range seemingly every week. New England had their way with Detroit, and if I'm not mistaken, we kind of figured it would be that way in the last matchup. I think this is a good bounce back opportunity for Detroit. So I'm kind of with you. I'm not loving a whole lot, but there are a couple value plays that I think potentially could set you over the top in one of these GPPs. The first one, a guy that burned me big time last week, was Martellus Bennett. I really think that he's going to have to get more involved if they want to stay in this game. And then the second one is wide receiver Marcus Wilson. This guy, he seems to get on the field more and more every week. Kind of a big body wide receiver, is in the good graces of Jay Cutler. At minimum price tag, anything can happen on Thursday night here, Thursday morning. And if the Bears fall way down behind, they're going to start running 4-3 wide receiver sets, and he's going to be on the field. So I don't hate him as a GPP kind of contrarian, minimum price guy. There are probably some other guys that people will probably look towards too. But I mean, I had this guy in a couple spots last week. Obviously, didn't do much, but he was less than 0.5% owned. So not a whole lot of people know a lot about him, but I think there's some potential there, especially if Chicago falls down big time in this game.
Yeah, 3-game slate. If you're running multiple lineups in terms, you got to take, one of these minimum price guys, a Foria, an Ebron. This guy, one of these guys is going to have a touchdown and get a game, and that's going to be what kind of vaults you to the top in this, with just 3 games in a 34,000 player pool tournament, 100,000 to first. So I don't really mind that. I don't really mind Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey here. They're going to be a little bit lower owned than your guys like Calvin Johnson, obviously, Golden Tate, Jeremy Maclin. I don't mind those guys. They're going to be low owned, and on a 3-game slate, you're going to need something different. So I don't really mind those guys. New England receivers, got a hold of Detroit last week. I think these guys, it all depends on Jay Cutler. If Jay Cutler's mind's in the game, I think they can have a good game. If Jay Cutler's sitting on the sideline smoking a cigarette, it's going to be a long day for the Bears.
And really quickly, just before we move on, I want to touch on Golden Tate. I think he's as good of a play, if maybe not a better play than Calvin Johnson this week. Obviously, love Calvin, but I'm gonna run both these guys out there in some of these tournaments because Golden Tate, obviously, a guy that is a PPR monster, but he's also pretty damn good after the catch. And Chicago, they've struggled in almost every aspect of their defense all season long, but more recently, that secondary, those guys just can't tackle anyone. So I think Golden Tate is a great play this week. Don't sleep on him, and I wouldn't even be afraid to load him and Calvin up in the same lineup.
Beer, let's go to the next game here. Philadelphia at Dallas. Dallas had a nice comeback against the Giants last week. You have to love the passing game. Pretty much everyone in this game on the Dallas side, all the main players, against Philadelphia in an up-tempo game on Thanksgiving. This just screams a very high-scoring game to me.
Yeah, I mean, the over-under is sitting at 55, so it's definitely the highest for Thursday and the second highest of the week. So this game is definitely going to be one that you're going to want to target. That being said, I think all the main players, like you said, are in play. DeMarco Murray against Philly, great matchup there. Dez, Philly has always, all season long, struggled against big play receivers. Like I talk about it week after week after week. It continues to hold true week after week. Even my boy Justin Hunter gets it done against Philadelphia. So,
oh, God.
You love it. So if you can get a touchdown against them, I got to think that's going to be big. But the guy that I'm really looking at here price-wise, I really like Terrence Williams this week. He's 3,900, I believe, on DraftKings this week. Not been doing much of anything, so I know he's been a little bit banged up, but I don't know that many people are going to be on him looking through his game logs, 3, 0, and 2 over the past few weeks. He qualifies as that big play receiver as well, so while a lot of people are on Dez, might be a smart pivot, save you a ton of salary, and look at Terrence Williams. So something to keep in mind. And Jason Witten's been great. The last couple of weeks, he's getting in the end zone. We're almost starting to use him more like we've seen in the past few years. His price not too bad as well. So he's another guy getting a ton of targets. Great in PPR, only 4,500 this week. So really like a passing game. Murray's a no-brainer every week, so don't need to really talk about that. But I will be all over this passing game on both sides. I think there's going to be a ton of points in this game. Always seems to be in these NFC East games. I think this one's no different.
Any interest in a Cole Beasley or anyone like that for as a shot in the dark in one of these huge tournaments on Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to say yeah, but again, I think Terrence Williams will be the sneaky guy. I know, there's only 6 teams to choose from, but I don't know that a lot of people are going to be on him, like I said, based on those game logs. So he would be my sneaky guy there. I don't really see it with Beasley, Dwayne Harris. I mean, maybe if you really want to go off the board, I would look at tight end. Maybe take a look at Gavin Escobar, another guy that really hasn't done much, but he's shown a ceiling. He's caught a couple touchdowns in a game before. Another guy nobody's going to have, minimum price. And the Dallas defense could be sneaky. Really wanted to roll the dice. And you're betting on bad Sanchez. Dallas could be the way to go. Again, you're going to have to take some risks. That may be one that pays off. It may blow up in your face, but if you're not willing to take those risks, you might as well not even play because you're not going to win these tournaments.
Boggs, let's talk about the Eagles here. What's your take on Mark Sanchez on the road? This McCoy, Sproles, can you use Sproles? I think Sproles is kind of a sneaky running back to use this week in returns. He seems to get a touchdown or two. He's shown where he can have these huge games. McCoy as well. He's always involved in the offense. Finally got into the end zone last week. You got Macklin, Jordan Matthews, you got Ertz, you got Brent Selleck. A lot of players on the field in this game for Philadelphia that could have a good game. Who are you liking as some of your main targets?
To be honest with you, there isn't a player I don't like. I don't think in this game. Vegas has it, pegged as the highest over/under for good reason. You get two prolific offenses going head-to-head against one another, And, while Mark Sanchez, struggled in his first road start this season, I really think that this it doesn't really set up for him to struggle, in my opinion, because they're going to get into a rhythm, the offense is, and as long as they're able to score first, I think, or at least get some points early on in this game, you'll see Mark Sanchez be able to settle down. Obviously has that great chemistry with Jordan Matthews. The production's been there. Macklin is the curious one here because he's still getting targeted, and we say it every week, they're going to have the ball just based on the way their offense is so up-tempo.
No one's going to have Macklin over Calvin Johnson $200 more than him this week. He's going to be very low owned. You saw what Odell Beckham Jr., I think he's on another level right now, but Macklin's kind of this guy that runs the sidelines and can go deep. I kind of like Macklin here.
Yeah, so Macklin and Matthews, love both of them. Now comes, is Zach Ertz going to get involved? Because obviously Dallas coming in, giving it the most fantasy points to tight ends. Really since the emergence of Jordan Matthews, they really haven't been using Ertz. And, I know I believe he missed last week, but he's back practicing again this week. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of dynamic plays out. At $3,200, I think the matchup sets up well for him, especially if they're going to be throwing a lot. But I'm definitely concerned about his snap count and the fact that they have Selleck, who's the better blocker.
Selleck's been putting up some. He had 3 games ago, almost 20 DraftKings points. He had 9.8 last week. He's on the field a lot more. And a lot of people don't think of him as the big pass catcher. I don't really mind rolling Selleck out this week either.
Yeah, it's I can't hate either one, especially if you're looking to save at tight end. Dallas has been getting torched by him all season long, and I just really think that pretty much everyone in this game is in play. I'll say I don't really necessarily love Riley Cooper. He's been getting targeted, but he runs these deep routes, and I just don't see. I'd much rather.
That's what you need in this Wishbone Classic on DraftKings this week. You need a guy. I mean, he's low owned. I think he's kind of going to be one of the higher targeted, low price guys just for his his pure upside he has.
Yeah, in the same price range though, I would much rather in a tournament play go with the Sproles and Philly Eagles special teams and hope for a punt return touchdown. Yep. You mentioned Sproles. I think at that price, he's actually going to be highly owned, I think. But, you can never trust how many snaps he's going to get, whether or not he's going to vulture a touchdown from McCoy. There's just so much to love from this game that, like I said, it's really hard for me to kind of pinpoint where I'm going to go. But there's going to be a lot of points to be had, and hopefully it's the players that you pick, and it's not one of these situations where everyone's getting some love. It would be nice to see, Sanchez get Macklin involved at his likely low ownership, and it was good to see LaShawn McCoy have a pretty big week last week. He's starting to get into a rhythm with that offensive line getting healthy. So there's a hell of a lot to love from Philadelphia in this game. It's difficult for me to pinpoint exactly who I'm going to take because I'm going to try and get as many of these guys in there as I can.
Yeah, let's go to the next game here, Beer. Seattle at San Francisco to close out the Thursday games. Colin Kaepernick, second pick. Nobody is going to be using him against Seattle here. Any interest there? The play I'm really interested in this game, there's 2 of them. I might take Anquan Boldin as kind of a sleeper against the Seattle defense. Don't think too many people will be on him there. And I really like the San Francisco D.
Kaepernick, he's crushed us all season long, so it's tough to like him. I don't think not many people are going to have him. They're going to get a lot of Romo, Sanchez, Staffords. I think Kaepernick, honestly, will be the least owned quarterback of the 6 this week. Now that I go through everything. So if that's your goal, that's what you want. I don't think I'll have any Kaepernick in this game. So might be a smart way to roll. I just don't see it. He just has not been the same player. So that being said, I'm off him. Gore's a little banged up. Seattle's run D has been vulnerable, but this hasn't looked like the same Frank Gore. I know he's been a warrior, but looks kind of washed up to me. So maybe Carlos Hyde could be a sneaky play here. While people take Gore, go to Hyde. Bolden, I think, is going to draw Richard Sherman. Actually, going to be Crabtree, I would have to imagine, their little battle going back and forth. So either of those receivers, to me, good GPP throws on Thursday. Vernon Davis is the guy that's intriguing to me for Thursday. Nobody's going to have him. His salary is...
If I told you at the beginning of the season, Vernon Davis would be min salary on DraftKings, would you believe me?
No. I mean, he's been terrible, no doubt about it. But we know that he has 2 or 3 good games. He's kind of like Jared Cook, always has 2 or 3 big games a year. This could be the one. And I know I don't like Kaepernick at all. Seattle's vulnerable to the tight end. Vernon Davis has done nothing, so people will be scared off by the game logs. I think he will be my top target for San Francisco, along with the defense. I think both defenses are in play. Definitely going to be a slugfest. So if you're looking outside the box, I guess you go with Kaepernick, but I don't think I got the stones to do it, to be honest. It's a tough matchup for him. Vernon and the receivers as long shots will be really all I'm looking at here, along with the defense.
Boggs, can you use, speaking, we're not on Colin Kaepernick. What's your take on Russell Wilson? He's tied with Tony Romo for the highest priced quarterback, and I think almost everyone, if they got to pick a quarterback, is going to take Tony Romo here. Russell Wilson, San Francisco is pretty good in limiting fantasy points to quarterbacks. Russell Wilson's kind of a different animal with the rushing that he brings to the game. Can you use him in a GPP? I think he makes a nice pivot off Tony Romo if you're looking for a kind of differentiate yourself in the field this week.
Yeah, I probably have him as my number 4 quarterback, which I think is a fair place to put him. I like him more than Cutler, and you've seen it. Now that he doesn't have anyone to throw the ball to, he just takes it off and does it himself. He's got over 70 yards rushing in each of the last 3 games, and he's capable of, when they get down in the red zone, Pete Carroll, they'll call these design runs for him to get in if Marshawn Lynch is struggling. So it's not the greatest matchup in the world, obviously, but the Niners, they can be beaten. And if I believe if Seattle's going to win this game, it's going to have to be by the legs or the arm of Russell Wilson. Another guy that I think is pretty sneaky this week is Doug Baldwin. Had a pretty terrible week last week. Only a couple catches for 6 yards, but before that, he had, I believe, a touchdown in. No, he didn't have a touchdown in 3 straight games. I'm sorry, I must have misread that. But going against the slot corner, that's where he plays. San Francisco's kind of been shuffling guys in and out, and at his price range, he certainly has the potential to have a big game, especially considering that DraftKings is a full PPR site. So I don't hate Baldwin at his cheap price tag if you're looking to save. I don't quite know if the upside's there, but a guy that is sure-handed and should get a fair share of targets, in my opinion. The question I have, I guess I have to turn to you guys, is which one of these tight ends do you use for Seattle, if in fact you do use any? I do agree that I think Vernon Davis is a nice sneaky play, but so could one of these 3 tight ends that Seattle all of a sudden has that have been on the field. Last week it was Cooper Helfett. He got the touchdown, but then he tweaked his ankle. You got Tony Moeaki and Luke Wilson still getting shares and getting percentage of the team's snaps. Are any of those guys in play for you at all?
I mean, no one's going to be using any of these guys, so I think a guy like Tony Moeaki, how do you pronounce that? He's back from injury finally. He had 4 for 34 last week, 3,100. If you add a touchdown in there, that's a pretty good game line out of a tight end for a near-min price.
Yeah, and that's kind of the ones I'm thinking. If you want to be a little contrarian, people are going to see guys like Bennett priced down, maybe even an Ertz, and people will go back to the well, and then maybe they'll give Vernon Davis another shot. But if all those guys end up being duds, and you can get a couple catches and hopefully a touchdown, that's the kind of guy that can win you a GPP. So I'd probably lean towards Moriaki since I think he's a better red zone target because he's massive. But, monitor that situation with Helfit. I think if he's out, it kind of makes it a little bit easier to pick between Luke Wilson or Tony Moriaki. But I'm pretty much with you. Not a whole lot to love from this game. If there's one game I'm probably not going to have that much exposure to, it's this one. But then again, kind of going back to our strategy, I think that there is some potential here.
Yep. All right, guys, that's going to do it for the Thursday games here. We spent a lot of analysis on that. We're going to blaze through. There's no buys this week, so we're going to blaze through the rest of these games for you. I'm telling you guys once again, get in this DraftKings game, the $600,000 Wishbone. It's a $20 buy-in, 100K to first. It's a third full now. It's going, if you wake up Thursday morning at 8 o'clock, it's going to be off the board, guys. Get in it early. And for all the sites around the industry, you're going to want to get in early on Thanksgiving. They fill up very fast. Beer, let's get into these Sunday games here. We're going to start off, guys. Okay, we got to go through these quick. Skins at Colts. You got to like the Colts at home here, Beer. Andrew Luck, Hilton. The running back situation is kind of a split between Trent and Haran. But you got to love Andrew Luck. He's got to be one of your top quarterbacks this week. You there, Beer?
See, that's what happens when you have kids and they're running around and they're crying and.
No time for kids, Beer. Rapid fire, right to the Colts.
Rapid fire. Give me all the Andrew Luck, the T.Y. Hilton you got. With Hilton indoors is a monster. Luck, I think, is going to bounce back. Disappointed last week, so those two, no-brainers. Keep an eye on the tight end situation. I think Fleener, when he's not ducking from catching touchdowns, should be a guy you look at. So we'll see if Dwayne Allen's back in there. If so, kind of waters down his value.
Is looking very, very questionable right now to me from what I read.
Right, so I'm not afraid to go back to Fleener. Some may be scared off. And the running backs, I'll mix and match each of them. I don't really love either one. Richardson is what he is. We know that already. Haran, whatever his name is, he looked good last week. So I'll have a little bit of shares of each one just because the matchup is good. But definitely Hilton, my favorite play in the game.
Boggs, the Skins here, they are just a mess right now. One play, if somehow they can keep this close, though. Alfred Morris, I kind of like at running back a little bit, but I just think the Skins are just a team in complete turmoil right now. Can you use any of these guys and feel good about it, or are you just avoiding this game?
Well, I do like Alfred Morris a bit. I got to be honest, I tend to play him more on a site that doesn't factor in full PPR since he's, almost and non-factor in the passing game, but we saw what Jonas Gray did, a big bruising type of back. If by some stretch of the imagination Washington's able to get the ball in the red zone, he's going to have his opportunities. That's how you're going to beat the Colts if you do in fact beat them. You're going to have to pound the rock, and Alfred Morris is a guy that's capable of carrying a workload. Is the goal line back? He'll give way to Roy Halou on third down, but aside from that, expect another heavy dose of production from Alfred Morris, and he had a pretty good week. Probably the only player on that team that had a good week last week, and that was in San Francisco. So I definitely like some potential for Alfred Morris. Outside of that, the only guy I think else that I'd even consider, and it'd only be for a GPP, is Deshaun Jackson. Obviously pretty much a GPP or boom or bust type of play, but I don't expect him to be on Vontae Davis very much. So he should have an opportunity to burn Indianapolis secondary. But other than that, that's it. I'm not going to the Niles Paul well. I think Jordan Reed's going to play. That's going to be a mess. That guy burned me last week. So.
Beer, let's go to the next game. Titans at Texans. Ryan Fitzpatrick is looking like he's going to be back with Ryan Mallett out. They're not going to go to the rookie, I heard, Savage, until they're completely out of the playoff picture. Arian Foster, he's looking like he's going to be back, but he was looking like he was going to be back next week. It's way too early in the week for us to look at running back there. So let's talk Fitzpatrick. Hopkins, Andre Johnson, can you use any of these guys, or are you looking elsewhere? I'm going to be avoiding pretty much this entire Texans offense.
I want the running back, whoever the running back. If it's Foster, I think he makes for a great play. And even if it's Alfred Blue, I think he's in for a bounce back, getting a ton of work. I don't think he's going to get 37 carries like we've seen in the past. Some may be scared off by what he did last week, but that running back in that offense is going to get a ton of work, and we've seen it week after week. Tennessee, terrible against the run. I mean, Le'Veon Bell looked like Walter Payton. Even our boy LaShawn McCoy had a good game against Tennessee. So whoever that running back may be, obviously something you're going to have to monitor. But I love the running back there. So if it's Blue, it saves you. If it's Foster, I'm paying up for him. Fitzpatrick in the old narrative game could be interesting. Tennessee not very good against the pass either. So I'm not opposed to going him in a GPP. Hopkins is probably really the only receiver I'm looking at. Those two seem to have a good connection. Hopkins has kind of dropped off since Mallett came in, so I'm willing to go back to that well. And I just can't roll with Andre Johnson anymore. I do Hopkins, but Johnson getting a ton of targets, but he's not doing anything with them. Has never really been a good red zone threat. That hasn't changed. So he's become a Larry Fitzgerald. The guys that are more intermediate, they're going to have 5 for 50, 6 for 60. That's not going to win me a tournament. So I'm not going to that well. So the running back, Fitzy, very, very intriguing to Hopkins, and maybe the Houston defense at home against Mettenberger could be sneaky as well.
Boggs, let's talk Titans here. Mettenberger, the Texans have really been burned by wide receivers this entire year, giving up a touchdown to a wide receiver every week this season except week 1. They gave up a big game to A.J. Green. Sanu got a touchdown. Any interest in Mettenberger to either Hunter, Kendall Wright, Nate Washington this week, Delaney Walker? I really like the passing game here, not so much Bishop Sankey.
Yeah, I'm not on Bishop Sankey at all. Mettenberger, tournament play only. I think that if Houston is going to win this game, that they're going to just dominate the clock, pound the ball. So Tennessee's not going to have very many possessions, which is going to be different from what we saw last week. So 345 yards, I think, is way out of the question for Mettenberger. And then, kind of going back, Justin Hunter has another terrific matchup. Seems like the ball has to get tipped and he has to make an acrobatic play to score a touchdown. But, hey, he scored last week. To be honest with you, though, I think I'm liking Kendall Wright a little bit more. I think that he's, Justin Hunter's could struggle against, I believe it's Jonathan Joseph, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that. But if it is, he's still a decent, wider cornerback. I think that he'll try and do whatever he can to get in, Justin Hunter's kitchen. So Kendall Wright in the slot, I think, is a safer play. Hunter has the upside. We saw it last week, but I think a lot of people will see that recency bias, go right after him, and I think Kendall Wright fly way under the radar. And he's got some decent potential, in my opinion.
Yeah, the receivers, one of these guys is going to score a touchdown this week, guys. This Houston pass defense, not very good. So I don't mind Hunter, Wright, or even Nate Washington, even though he doesn't get on the field too much as a a dart throw in a GPP. One of these receivers is going to score a touchdown this week. Next game, Browns at Bills. Beer, I got to be honest here. I'm not interested in anybody on the Bills except Fred Jackson. Maybe you can go the wide receiver opposite of Sammy Watkins. He's probably going to get the Joe Hayden treatment. Any interest in Robert Woods? I just love Fred Jackson against this Cleveland run D.
Yeah, this game has an over/under 41, so that should tell you it's one of the lowest that you're going to see all season. So not a lot here I like. I think Fred Jackson at his price, always in play on DraftKings because of the full PPR. Looked good against the Jets. The whole team did. So put a beat down on him here.
It's easy to look good against the Jets, Beer.
This is true. This is true. So I think Watkins could be interesting. I know he's going against Hayden, but we saw Julio Jones have some success against Hayden. All year long, receivers have been doing well against him. I just think Woods is going to be more popular than he should be, just based on what he did last week. I'm not expecting him to even come close to those numbers again. So I'll have a little bit of Sammy Watkins because nobody will really be on him more. I think Woods wants to be more owned than Watkins at this point. So
yeah, he's 3,600 for Woods on DraftKings.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm pretty much avoiding this game. I will have a little bit of Fred, a little bit of Sammy. And Buffalo defense plays good at home. Going back home, that crowd is going to be inspired. So Hoyer has not been bad. He hasn't been good. I think they can force some turnovers. They're always a much better defense at home. And again, that place is going to be raucous. So Buffalo D, one of my favorite Ds of the week, even with Josh Gordon back.
Boggs. To me, on the Browns side, it's all Josh Gordon. The Bills pretty tough against the run game. Crowell was kind of the darling pick last week. I'm going to be avoiding the run game for Cleveland this week. But give me all the Josh Gordon against the Bills secondary.
Yeah, another good matchup for him. Curious game, though. I mean, obviously, the game kind of got out of hand. Cleveland was forced to throw the ball and come back, but I didn't really think Gordon looked like he was on the same page with Hoyer. Obviously, a full week of practice could change that. But another guy, and hats off to you, who had a pretty big game is Andrew Hawkins, and 14.3 points. It's not going to probably not win you a tournament, but I think he's got as much potential to at least put up that kind of line again, especially if Buffalo is able to get out to a lead. So it's really kind of dependent on how the game flow goes in this game. If they're able to move the ball with Isaiah Crowell, then I think you'll see that over-under of, what did you say, it was 41, pretty much hold true, because both teams like to run the ball. But if Buffalo is able to get out to a big lead like they did against the Jets in their last game, you can see guys like Josh Gordon and Andrew Hawkins have pretty big days. Also, getting back into the mix is Jordan Cameron this week. $3,100. I don't hate it. Buffalo's been pretty stout against the tight ends all season long. But, if he's, full systems go, he's got the potential as well to have a pretty decent game at a, near minimum price. So that's pretty much what I'm liking. I'm with you. Not really on Crowell, not on Terrence West. Great for you last week, but they're going to struggle against a tough Bills ground game.
Beer, let's go to the next game here. San Diego at Baltimore. We've got a guy. I spent $600 in our Roto Grinders League on Justin Forsett week 1 on free agent bids. And people were calling me crazy, and I think they are all crazy right now because he has led me into the playoffs in our Roto Grinders League. Congratulations on the bye week, by the way. You have to love Justin Forsett in this game. The Chargers, last time they went west to east, got obliterated by Miami. I'm sure Boggs is going to accept the worst for a San Diego team this week. I love Justin Forsett. Other than that, not too much I like in this game on the Ravens. Just Forsett's just locked in right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's the most underrated player in the NFL right now, and even on these sites, he just doesn't seem to get respected. Puts up numbers week after week after week. Still 6,300 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's still cheap. So, I mean, this guy's money, and still nobody's recognizing it. In tournaments, he's always under-owned. So, I mean, Adrian Peterson costs more on DraftKings at this point than Justin Forsett. So
I was just going to mention that. That's funny.
So, yeah, I like him a lot. I had a lot of him this last week. Obviously, he had a huge week. I think he's in for another good week. San Diego, a good all-around defense. It's kind of got me worried about the passing game. Again, that's why I think you're going to get a house of Forsett. Torrey Smith has really stepped up his game, so he'd be the GPP play for me. Not so much on Steve Smith anymore. I know he had a touchdown last game. That was against New Orleans. This is a much better secondary. San Diego also very good against the tight end position, so Owen Daniels pretty much off the board for me. So maybe the Baltimore D could be a cheap or not cheap, but an under-owned D. San Diego's always viewed as a good offense, so they could be sneaky. But yeah, Forsett's my main target here.
Boggs, let's talk about your Chargers here. West Coast going east. I mentioned they got obliterated by Miami in Miami the last time they went west to east. Tell me about your Chargers this week, my man.
Well, they've been west to east a couple times this year. They fared pretty well against a tough Bills team. First time they did that early on in the season. And, I think that last game against Miami was more of an anomaly. Those guys coming off two, really tough, hard losses to division opponents, and then they had to bye that they were looking forward to. So I don't really put the travel into too much stock into that. I'm liking the Chargers this week. I think that
Phillip Rivers is way down on DraftKings. He's $6,000 this week.
Yeah, and Baltimore dealing with the numerous injuries they have in their secondary. I think that, like we talked about, they struggled against the Rams because it's all coming down to their offensive line, which is, like I said, it's a a bunch of guys off the street. So I think that Baltimore's going to want to riding high. They're going to want to take it to the Chargers. I think this game is not a game that the Chargers can control, but I think that they're good enough, like we saw last week, to come back and to keep up with teams. That's not their style, but when the situation does arise, they have that ability. So Keenan Allen, fire him back up with Phillip Rivers. Big game from him last week. Don't hate Malcolm Floyd or even Eddie Royal near minimum price. They're going to have to rely on these guys. I'm pretty much with you guys with Owen Daniels, and I'm kind of feeling the same way about Antonio Gates. Always a solid, reliable option, but really hasn't been doing it the past couple of weeks. So I think it's the receivers that get involved. I'm not sniffing the running game. I think that's going to continue to struggle with all these injuries to the offensive line. So fire up Phillip Rivers and Keenan Allen for me. I think the Chargers are going to put up some big numbers this week.
Yeah, Keenan Allen at 6,000. Just maybe a couple hundred more than I like him, but he's just getting massive targets, and you're right, they are seeming to go to him a lot more than Antonio Gates. So I don't mind Keenan Allen at all this week. Let's go next game here. Giants at Jags. Beer, I bet you can't wait to talk about the Jags. Can you play any of these guys? Denard Robinson kind of got shut out in his last game here. The Giants not so great against the run. I think you got to look to him. Can Cecil Shorts, have a bounce back game? He burned everybody. No one's going to be on him this week. Can you trust him against the Giants this week?
I think this is interesting. I think Jacksonville can do some damage here. I think the Giants go in and win, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout. So that being said, Denard's definitely a target for me. Shorts is a guy that gets
expensive on DraftKings. He's 6,000, and I mean, you'd rather spend 6,200 on Andre Ellington, almost no question this week, right?
That's what the masses are thinking as well. So I'll take a 2% Denard Robinson over a 15-20% Andre Ellington. But Shorts, again, target monster. I think he bounces back. Alan Hearns could be interesting as well. Big play receiver. The Giants definitely can be vulnerable to the big play as well as to the run. We've seen them give up some big games on the ground. So those three are my main targets. I have a hard time trusting Bortles. He just turns the ball over too much. So I think Shorts and Hearns can be playable in tournaments, but I don't know that I'm going to go Bortles. But don't write off Jacksonville. I think they can put up some points here to make this an interesting game.
Boggs, the Giants here. Odell Beckham Jr. has transformed Eli Manning into a usable fantasy quarterback again. He's just an amazing receiver. He's not even near the top. He's 6,800 on DraftKings. He has to be one of the major targets for everyone this week going up against Jacksonville. Rashad Jennings as well. I love him in the run game. But I think you can start anyone, including Eli Manning, any three of these now that Odell Beckham Jr. is just so good right now. He's really helping out Eli Manning.
Yeah, absolutely. I think almost every one of these guys are in play. The guy I like most, believe it or not, though, is Rashad Jennings this week. Just getting kind of similar to DeMarco Murray. He's always on the field.
Yeah.
Andre Williams he's an afterthought in that offense.
That Andre Williams character, man, getting that touchdown last week I was not too happy about that.
That was irritating.
Yeah. No, I know, I understand, but still, I mean, Rashad Jennings, aside from that, is still, 20 points.
He's a PPR monster on DraftKings. His goal.
He's a usage monster. He's going to get the ball as much as possible. So I like him the most. Probably more of a cash game play. Though I think a lot of people will gravitate towards Beckham, which opens the door for some interesting GPP opportunities if you decide to fade him. I think Ruben Randall is certainly in play. Same with Larry Donnell. Jacksonville, they struggle in almost every area of the game, and I think that despite the Giants pretty much being out of it at this point, that they're a well-coached team, and they're not going to pack it in. So I like Jennings. I don't hate Manning, and I certainly love Odell Beckham, but brings up a curious question of whether or not you fade him at his likely high ownership.
Yeah, I love that 6,800 price, and I still think There's still just not as many people on him as there should be. He's just roaming those sidelines really good for the Giants, and he looks very good when he plays the game of football right now. So I love me
I
some
think
Odell.
that's going to change after that catch. I mean, everyone and their moms. I mean, an amazing catch, no doubt
Yeah, he's
about it. One of the
definitely going to be
best.
higher owned. I mean, if I'm swooning over him, everyone's going to be swooning over him this week. So.
So just keep an eye. He's also a little banged up, so keep an eye on that. But I'm with Boggs. I think Jennings is the play there. Another guy going back to a former team in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I love Rashad Jennings for sure this week. Next game, Bengals at Bucks here, Beer. Let's talk the Bucks here. Mike Evans kind of took a backseat to Vincent Jackson last week. How do you kind of break that down? I think they're almost pretty even week in, week out in terms of who you can use. The halfback situations, it's a total mess with all three guys being there. McCown against the Bengals. Can you go there too? What's your take on this Bucks team?
Here's my take on the Bucks. You want rapid fire? I don't see anything here. Cincinnati, a very good defense. They had a little bit of a lull there, but they seem to be getting back on track. So good against the quarterback, good against the wide receiver position, and I can't trust the running back. So Evans and Jackson are always in play for me in tournaments because they bring that big upside. Jackson, the cheaper of the two, and some people may be off Evans because of his
Yeah, no one's going to be using Evans at that price tag this week. I think he makes a great tournament play in the Millionaire Maker.
So a little bit of Evans, a little bit of Jackson. Honestly, though, I don't see much here for Tampa Bay. I think Cincinnati goes in and wins this game. Tampa Bay, the only 2 games out of first place at 2-9.
That's crazy. Boggs, let's talk the Bengals here. You got to love A.J. Green, Sanu, Dalton. I like those guys. What's your take on the running back situation? Last week there were so many carries to go around. They both kind of were able to make some fantasy value. But week in, week out, I just can't use Hill or Gio right now. They kind of just eat into each other. I'm avoiding that halfback situation.
Yeah, same here. If they were $1,000 cheaper, then I think they'd be in the discussion. But at that price, there's just simply some better options and guys that are going to get the ball consistently more often. I think this game is just all AJ Green for me. You could perhaps go the Jermaine Gresham route. If I'm not mistaken, 2 touchdowns week before. 4 catches last week. Tampa, going against Lovie Smith and that Tampa 2 defense, he should be open, but Tampa Bay can't cover anyone. So I think it's all AJ Green. Don't even hate Sanu. We'll see how Andy Dalton fares on the road going to Tampa Bay, but not necessarily the toughest place in the world to play. So I think that, if anything, I'm targeting the passing game. Andy Dalton still pretty much underpriced, but I don't have to have him. The one guy that I really like is AJ Green, and I'm gonna have him in a ton of my lineups this weekend.
Yeah, I was big on AJ Green last week, and that worked out pretty well. I'm liking him again this week. His price is starting to creep back up to where it used to be at the start of the season, before he had some of his injuries. So he is expensive, which is going to keep his ownership down. So I do like me some AJ Green this week. Raiders at Rams. I'm going to keep this easy for both of you. It's Latavius Murray and it's Trey Mason. The running back situation in this game, I like. Maybe some Raiders wide receivers. The Rams aren't there, are giving up a lot of points, fantasy points, to opposing receivers. But if Latavius Murray gets the all-go, I'm loving both running backs in this game.
Yeah, I think this is a game a lot of people will write off, so maybe something that you want to look at in tournaments. So Trey Mason, one of my favorite running backs of the week, combining price, matchup. The guy gets a ton of touches, going back home. Has faced a ton of difficult matchups, obviously, in that division, going against Seattle, San Francisco, Arizona. And that's rough sledding. So gets a matchup here with Oakland at home on the fast turf. He can get 20, 25 carries at his price. Love it, love it, love it. The receivers, that's another question. Oakland's been very good, actually, against the receiver position, the tight end position. So one week it's Kenny Britt. Last week it was Stedman Bailey. I think I would take a shot at Tavon Austin, though, a guy who was on the field a ton, brings a big play ability, doesn't cost you much in a full PPR format. Not going to mess around with those other guys. I will take a shot on Tavon Austin, though. Love his price. Love to see him on the field. if they can get creative, get him the ball in sweeps and different things, like we saw using him at West Virginia, he can be dangerous, and he can definitely get in the end zone. So Tavon Austin is one guy that I'm saying keep an eye on this week. I think he has a big game this week against Oakland.
Boggs, on the Raiders side, I'm just reading the little blurb on Murray. He hasn't done exercise yet. It's way too early on Tuesday to tell if he's going to gain clearance for Sunday. But if he plays, I love him this week against the Rams, and you got to like some of these Raiders receivers too. The Rams just not very good at stopping wide receivers. What's your take on the Rams?
I'm going to disagree with you. I don't like anything on Oakland's side of the ball here. Latavius Murray, who knows what happens? It's still too early to tell. The receivers outside of garbage time.
If he's announced that he's playing with no restrictions and he's starting at 3,800 on DraftKings, he's going to be one of the highest owned players of the week without question.
It's still a tough matchup, and with the Rams playing much better of late, I think the Rams are just going to absolutely blow out the Raiders. Just really quickly, I know we're pressed for time, but the Tavon Austin Rams defense, that's another one of these things, kind of like the Sproles to Eagles. Tavon Austin, a punt returner. I'm definitely liking that, and that's a good call by Beermakersfan. I'm gonna definitely throw that in a couple bullets in a GPP, and hopefully that pays off. But yeah, I'm not liking anything on Oakland's side outside of some garbage time, which I just don't really see. I think Oakland legitimately is going to get blown out of the building.
Beer, what's your take on Murray? I saw you were nodding your head. Wasn't to hear. Why don't you weigh in on Murray? You think he's going to be very highly owned this weekend? If he gains clearance from that concussion.
I am staying away. He will be very highly owned. What has he done in this league? The guy had 4 carries. Sure, he looked great. 190-yard carry, and we're putting him in the Hall of Fame. So let's not forget.
He's Bo Jackson, my man.
There you go. Bo Jackson on Tecmo Bowl for us older folks. Unstoppable. But, yeah, I'm staying away. St. Louis has really righted the ship on defense. Tough run D. I'm not buying it. I'll let everybody else chase last week and have him on rosters. He will be on 0 of my lineups. If I made 25 lineups, I'm still not using him. I'm staying away.
All right, let's go to the Saints and Steelers here, Beer. We'll keep you talking. It's Big Ben. It's Bell. Bell has to be your one of the top halfback plays of the week after we saw the Swiss cheese run defense of the Saints that was just last night, wasn't it? Crazy doing a show on Tuesday. You got to love them. And Antonio Brown, he's almost the number 1 receiver every week for me.
Ben Brown Bell back at home against a horrible New Orleans defense. I know Brown's going to draw the number 1 corner there in Lewis, but I'm not worried about him. Brown to me is matchup proof. The guy is just phenomenal. So I'll be on all 3 of them, and I honestly think Ben could be sneaky again. Won't be very highly owned coming off a couple subpar games, but much better team at home, much better offense at home. So I'll be heavily targeting all 3 of them, and I think Martavis Bryant will be a guy nobody will be on at his prices after his dud last week. I think he's the guy that maybe if Brown's drawing some coverage, Bryant can tear up the rest of the secondary. So don't sleep on him. Don't fall victim to looking at game logs and writing guys off because they had a bad game last week or they burned you last week. Stay true. Look at the matchups. Bryant's another guy that I like under the radar, similar to Tavon Austin, that nobody's going to have. So the big 3 without question, and I will have some Martavis Bryant in tournaments.
And if you're spending on running back this week, I think there's such a small chance that you can go wrong on Le'Veon Bell this week. I think he's almost a near lock for, what would you say on DraftKings, full PPR, 20 fantasy points probably this week?
Yeah, I wouldn't see why not. The guy catches a ton of passes. No LeGarrette Blount there now to take away any touches. Not that he was doing much anyway, but Bell just does it all for that team. So I think 20 is a reasonable mark, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him into the 30s.
He has some huge upside this week, guys.
Absolutely.
Let's go to the other side, Boggs. You got the Saints here. You got Drew Brees on the road, and what could be, not the greatest weather. That seems to kind of be his downfall. Can you go there? The running back situation with Pierre Thomas back, some of these other guys getting healthy. Mark Ingram's going way down on my list. Running backs I want to use every week. The Steelers D also getting healthy. They're going to get Palomalu, There was another one of the linebackers is coming back. I want no part of this run game for the Saints. It's pretty much just Jimmy Graham. He can have a good game even if Breeze only throws a touchdown or two and has 200 yards. A lot of those can go to Jimmy Graham in the red zone. What's your take on the Saints team going to Pittsburgh with a very high over/under at 51?
It's tough not to like him and kind of perhaps fall for that trap again. But Brees been terrible on the road, kind of living up to that, those expectations we have of him when he's not inside a dome. That being said, a lot of people are well aware of that now, and Pittsburgh can get beaten. Their defense isn't much better than New Orleans in really any aspect. They can get beat through the air. Brees is a guy that can do it. I love Graham this week. Having a hard time with the wide receivers and obviously the running backs, but if they're playing from behind like we expect, then that should mean more looks for Pierre Thomas, who's more involved in the passing game at his price. I think he's definitely worth a look in a GPP. But yeah, it's pretty much just Jimmy Graham, the only guy that I'm really sold on that I think is going to have a good game. And then it's really your pick of the litter between the wide receivers. Kenny Stills, the deep threat. Colston, the kind of under, safer option.
Stills he wasn't just this deep threat now with Cooks out. He was running pretty much a full route tree. I watched a good part of that game. He's getting a lot of targets, taking a lot of the stuff Cooks had. I like Kenny Stills to kind of have a very productive PPR game this week.
Yeah, I think that they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. So hopefully that New Orleans isn't somehow able to establish a running game, or both these teams are just running it down each other's throats. Hopefully they break out the passing game, but with Big Ben back home, they're going to try and get him going again. So I think that they're going to try and jump out to an early lead, which means all the garbage time for guys like Jimmy Graham, Stills, and Pierre Thomas.
If you've got to play a tight end this week on DraftKings, let me bring them up here. You got Gronkowski at 7,800 in a huge over/under against Green Bay, or Jimmy Graham at 7,100. $700 price savings. Who would you take in that matchup?
That's a tough one for me. Normally it's pretty much the last couple weeks it's been Gronk or bust. But Belichick trying to get too cute. I think that New England's going to try and really run the ball against Green Bay. So I think that Jimmy Graham might have a little bit more potential, although Gronkowski has been solid. But you can always run both of them out there on DraftKings. That's the good thing about having a flex spot, and you'll see that in a couple of my lineups this weekend.
Yeah, not too many people run tight ends out in a GPP just because most people pick the halfback or receiver. Interesting strategy that could possibly pay off this weekend. Carolina at the Vikings here, Beer. Teddy Bridgewater to Charles Johnson. Can you roll that out this week? I don't think it's too crazy to think that Charles Johnson, he's playing just about every snap. They really want to take a look at him. He's easily the man you want to target as a wide receiver for the Vikings. What say you? This halfback situation, completely a mess right now.
I say, what the hell is Green Bay doing letting this kid get away? That's what I say. We drafted Charles Johnson, a guy I liked a lot. I thought he could come in and stay on the practice squad for a few years. And anyway, I digress. But yeah, he looks good. He looks the part. I mean, big physical receiver. He's pretty much what everyone thought Cordero Patterson was going to be. Charles Johnson is. So I love this Minnesota passing game this week. They look good against Green Bay. No reason they can't look good against Carolina, and they play well at home. So Teddy looked good. Some bad throws. He's a rookie. You're going to get some ups, some downs. He's not going to go out there and get you 35 fantasy points. But if you can get me 20 at that price point, definitely somebody to take a look at, and I definitely will. So him, the Johnson, Jennings, and Patterson would be the sneakier options. I think more people would be on Johnson. I just can't trust Patterson right now. They're not using him the way they did earlier in the year. He's not getting carries out of the backfield. So that being said, running back-wise, I think McKinnon's price is nice. He got a lot of touches. Asiata's still hurt. Ben Tate's still being worked into the mix. And Carolina, again, has been bad against the run as well. So I'm targeting more of the passing game. I'll have a few shares of McKinnon just because of his price, but I'm loving the Bridgewater to Johnson combo for sure.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. And the Millionaire Maker, it really opens up some salary for everybody else you can spend on some of the top guys. Running multiple lineups or even as a single lineup, I don't mind that at all. Just kind of put your faith in that, spend up elsewhere. That could turn out really good for you. Boggs, Carolina, Cam Newton, they're off the bye week, maybe got a little healthier. They are at the Vikings. I'm not sure I want to target them this week. Cam Newton has a very nice schedule in the next couple of weeks coming up where I might want to target them, where they're just going to kind of let them throw. But at the Vikings, Vikings play pretty good defense. They shut down Green Bay. Can you trust Cam to Calvin Benjamin to Greg Olsen this week?
Nope, but you can trust Kelvin Benjamin to get all the garbage time TDs.
Yep.
And that's the only guy that I'm going to have any. Yeah, that's the only guy I'm going to have any exposure to in this game. We don't need to waste too much time dicking around with the running backs. Minnesota very tough against the tight end. So yeah, I'm not loving what Cam's bringing to the table. Maybe I'll target him next week. Hopefully he has a bad week this week and his price comes down. But Calvin Benjamin's price finally starting to come up.
Yeah, you want Calvin Benjamin at 6,600, or do you want Odell Beckham Jr. at 6,800?
Well, if we're talking ownership percentage, I think that Benjamin's the only guy in the offense, whereas Beckham, he's got some complementary pieces. Obviously, like Beckham's matchup at Jacksonville, a lot better, but it's an interesting tournament strategy taking Benjamin instead of Beckham because the ownership percentage is going to be very drastic.
Yep. No one else. The running game here. No interest in that guy. Stay away. Next game here. Beer Cards at Falcons. Matt Ryan, Julio, Roddy. It's those three. I think you can roster all those at home. Matt Ryan is almost always lights out at home. Cardinal defense can be taken advantage of through the air. You have to like the air game of Atlanta this week.
Yeah, I'm avoiding the running game. I've pretty much been avoiding Atlanta's running game all year. I mean, Steven Jackson will get you a touchdown here and there, but so touchdown dependent, really doesn't do much outside of that.
Arizona's so tough against the run. There's no way he gets 60 yards and a touchdown this week.
Right, that's their strength. So no way I'm going anywhere near Atlanta's running game. The passing game, though, looks great. Again, this is a team that's 4-7 and in first place. So they're fighting for their playoff lives, believe it or not. So Ryan to Julio, I actually prefer Roddy White. Patrick Patterson's looked a little bit better. Or Patrick Peterson has looked better the last couple weeks. So I will still have some Julio, but I think Roddy White, once again, outproduces Julio this week, and you get him at a cheaper discount. So definitely on the passing game here. I think they can expose this Arizona secondary.
Boggs, let's go to the Arizona team. To me, there's one name and one name only. It's Andre Ellington. Give me all the Andre Ellington in every lineup, in every format, in every game. I want Andre Ellington on my roster this week against Atlanta.
Right, that's aggressive, but I like it. The matchup doesn't get any better. He's been, another one of these NFC West. He's had tough matchup after tough matchup. Last week was no different. Gets a gorgeous one against
Crowell and Terrence West just lit up the Falcons, and Andre Ellington is going to put them to rest.
Well, let's hope so. But yeah, outside of that, it's kind of tough because you do have Stanton at a minimum price. Two pretty a mediocre performance last week. Looked completely lost out there. But again, Atlanta sucks against the run. They suck against the pass, and it's a vertical style offense that Bruce Arians runs, which sets itself up nicely for a Michael Floyd rebound game, because while who was it? Trufant, had a decent game last game against Joe Gordon. It's Michael Floyd, I think, has as much ability as a similar type of guy. So I think they're going to try and get him going. And at $3,600, I know he's burned you, been boom or bust, but I think it sets itself up for a nice game. And
if Larry Fitzgerald sits, do you want Floyd or do you want John Brown?
Well, I want Floyd just because in a tournament he's got the more potential, whereas Brown will kind of be that what's his golden Tate type of player.
Give me John Brown all day in that right now. I love John Brown.
Well, we'll see, but I think indoors in a potential shootout, Michael Floyd's the guy that you're going to end up wanting if he's able to Stanton's able to connect downfield with him.
Beer, if Fitzgerald's out, Brown or Floyd, I know me and you have had a man crush on Michael Floyd. I have broken up with him. Have you?
You know I can't quit these guys. Come on. Me and Justin Hunter are still a thing. You know I'm still on Michael Floyd, so I'll go Floyd. I like them both, though. I think they're both in play. Atlanta secondary is definitely one you can expose, so I'll have a little bit of both of them, to be honest, at these prices.
The game of the week, guys, what I think is going to be a Super Bowl preview. The Pats at Packers. I don't know if there's much analysis needed. You just play everybody. This game has the makings of a shootout for sure. Beer, your Packers, all of them. Rodgers, Lacey, Cobb, Adams. Who's the other guy? Jordy Nelson. You just play them all. You don't look back.
No, this game 59 over under, one of the highest, if not the highest number that you're going to see.
The highest I've seen all season.
Yeah, so the one exception here is I don't know that I'm going to have a lot of Randall Cobb because New England, obviously Darrelle Revis is there, and what they've done is they've seemed to put him on the number 2 receiver and let Brandon Browner handle the bigger physical receiver. So I think you're going to see Browner on Jordy, which is fine. I'll still roster Jordy. Browner doesn't scare me. But I think Revis may take Cobb out of play for me. I think he's going to lock him down, try to get rid of that element of the game. So to me, that bumps up Adams a little bit. Obviously, Jordy's still in play. And I think you're going to get a healthy dose of Lacey.
Eddie Lacy is on. He's a man on a mission. He has put up some monster games recently.
Yeah, he's running well. So I know New England, a great game plan, and I'm sure they're going to try to take out somebody. My gut says it's going to be Cobb. I don't think they're going to be able to contain Jordy. I don't know that Revis can handle that physical style of Nelson. But with Cobb, he's the perfect corner to kind of eliminate his type of game. So temper your expectations on Cobb just a bit. Again, it bumps up Adams for me. Jordy's still a top 5 guy, and I'm going to have a ton of Lacey. Aaron Rodgers, no-brainer here. Should be a ton of points in this game.
Boggs, the New England side, again, you play all of them except the halfback situation. Whoever you pick Vereen, it's going to be Blunt. If you pick Blunt, it's going to be Gray. If you pick Gray, it's going to be Bolden. You take Bolden, it's going to be Vereen. Can you make any sense of this halfback situation? Other than that, Tom Brady, both receivers, Edelman, LaFell, and Gronk, especially. I really like Gronk. All these guys, top plays, no question.
Yeah, it's tough. It's Bill Belichick at his finest. Really, the only guys that I'm liking very much in this game is the Brady to Gronk combination. But if I had to pick a running back, I think Blount's the guy. I think with Green Bay kind of struggling against the run for most of this season, that getting a big bruiser, in there that no one likes to tackle is the recipe for success. I think Jonas Gray came and went. He made his own, bed by sleeping in it too long. But Vereen, always intriguing. He didn't have a terrible week last week, but, didn't find the end zone. They obviously gave Blunt. They ran it right down Detroit's throat, and I think that they're going to continue to go with what works. Not concerned about Gronk. He was still getting targeted heavily, even in the red zone. Don't go out and run, pick up, Tim Wright and expect another 2-touchdown performance. It can happen, but, the guy's on the field for, 60 snaps. I guess, he was out there for quite a bit last week, but that was more of a particular game plan. I think that if Green Bay is able to score, that they're going to turn to, guys that have been consistent, in their passing game, whereas Tim Wright isn't necessarily that guy, so I'm not going that route. But yeah, it's pretty much Brady Gronk. That's really all I'm in love with. We'll have some shares of LeGarrette Blount and perhaps a little bit of Julian Edelman or LaFell.
Yeah, I think both Edelman and LaFell. I think more people will gravitate to Edelman in that millionaire maker. And Brandon LaFell, $100 cheaper, I think could be in a very good spot, especially if they have to air it out deep at 6,100. Beer, this is the game of the week. Quick, your thoughts on New England.
Don't write off Jonas Gray. He's not. Nobody's going to have him, and it seems to always be the running back that none of us have for whatever reason. So he's a guy who, again, 1-2% owned, and could get back in the mix. I don't know if he was in the doghouse because he was late for a meeting or what, but Blunt will definitely be popular. Gray, if you're looking for a sneaky play, won somebody $1 million at 6.6% owned. I do think this is a Vereen game, though, in the running back department. A lot of points going back and forth. I think there's going to be a lot of passing. I know both teams are going to run the ball, but I think you're going to get a lot through the air. That's Vereen's game. So just, again, keep an eye on Gray. Don't write him off. I'll probably have shares of all three of them, to be honest, just to cover my bases. Love LaFell, Edelman, and Gronk. I think New England's going to put up a ton of points here as well. So it's going to be fun to watch. Target this game, for sure. They will live up to expectations.
I would not be surprised at all if a game stack of like Brady, Lacey, Vereen, Edelman, Nelson, Gronk, or something like that, a total game stack kind of puts someone up near the top in one of these tournaments this week. So this is going to be a very high-scoring game, guys. Make sure you have some exposure to this game. Broncos at Chiefs here, Beer. The Chiefs, can you trust Alex Smith at all in a game that figures to be a little bit more high-scoring? They might have to air it out. And Jamal Charles, you got to love Jamal Charles at all times this week. He's pretty much the only way they're going to score a touchdown this week. What's your take on the Chiefs?
Yeah, I know we're running a little late here, so Charles obviously is in play. I love Kelsey again this week. Denver's kind of struggled with the tight ends. He's still their best weapon. I know Fasano's back, but I can see Kelsey, especially if there's garbage time, spending more time on the field. Alex Smith, it's dicey. I'm kind of on the fence on him, but most quarterbacks against Denver have value because they got to score. They got to throw. They got to try to keep pace. So he'd be a tournament play for me. I could see some upside there. He had some decent games against Denver last year, but I'll have some Charles, some Kelsey, a little bit of Smith. Not much else here for Kansas City. I'm not going Dwayne Bowe here. Just can't trust it. Nobody else to really mention here on the Chiefs.
Yeah, Charles is going to be very low owned compared to Le'Veon Bell. Bell's 8,700, Charles 8,600. If you're looking to mix it up in one of these big tournaments, I have no problem using Jamal Charles there. Boggs, the Broncos, you got to start them all. Are you fearful of this Chiefs defense? C.J. Anderson, man, I was not on him last week, and he just blew the doors off the Dolphins last week. Do you think he can do it against the Chiefs?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think the Chiefs present a pretty tough test. I really haven't been able to peg this game all week long. In Kansas City, tough place to play. But C.J. Anderson's been great. He's been everything that they pretty much asked out of Hillman and Monty Ball, but he's better. And he's getting his opportunity. He's making the most of it. That being said, I think Peyton Manning and Demaryius Thomas, taking up about $20,000 a cap. We saw them not be very highly owned last week, and Peyton's still going to throw the ball, but now with Julius Thomas hurt, Emmanuel Sanders, he was involved, but it's all Demaryius Thomas, and I actually liked Emmanuel Sanders this week in addition, but I wouldn't go to the Julius Thomas route.
If you put Peyton Manning and Demaryius Thomas in your lineup, you're left with $4,400 to spend on the rest of your positions this week. That's not a lot of money.
Nope.
It's going to be a very low-owned combination, and they can do damage, especially given the KC defense. They can do damage against anybody.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup, but they've been proven that resilient, that they can, blow by anyone. They're creative by, throwing bubble screens to Demaryius Thomas, just trying to create some space for him to break loose. But I also think that Emmanuel Sanders is definitely in play this week. Even regardless of his high price tag, he's going to get his share of the balls as well. And if he's able to find a touchdown, find the end zone, then it could pay off for him.
Let's see here. Last game of the night, the Monday Night Hammer. First off, it's the Dolphins at the Jets. It's in New York. So Beer, The Jets. Can you roster anyone from the Jets in a game? They're probably, this Jets season's just spiraling out of control right now. It's probably going to be garbage time. Can you use any of the Jets this week? You there, Beer?
I think that's his way of saying no.
He's out. All right, there he is.
No, not many Jets to like here. I mean, Harvin's a guy that we've talked about in the past. Didn't do much last week. Decker's a guy up and down, up and down. Don't know who the quarterback's going to be. If it's Geno Smith, I think you downgrade even further from your Jets. So I don't like much here. I think Miami goes in and kicks their ass, to be honest. So I will be rostering 0 Jets this weekend.
Yeah, I love, it seems like you can't win any of these tournaments without rostering, a combo or some players from this Monday night game. I usually don't do it, but you got to love the, some of these other shows. It's the Monday Night Hammer, these Dolphins, Boggs. Ryan Tannehill, Jarvis Landry. I was big on him last week, and he had a nice monster game. I love him again this week. Mike Wallace. I love the combo, one of those two guys this week against the Jets.
Yeah, I wish I had some more Jarvis Landry last week, but the kid is really coming into his own, and it's helping the entire passing game, including Tannehill getting another option in there. And outproducing Mike Wallace, I think, both are certainly in play against a terrible Jets secondary. Weather might be a concern in this game. Obviously monitor that, but if everything's good to go, there's no reason to assume why Tannehill can't show up against this terrible Jets D and smoke them through the air and even on the, by running the ball himself. So, I was big time wrong on Tannehill last week. I was wrong about a lot of things, but I probably won't be making that same mistake again this week. The Jets, everything's really working in their favor. So I definitely think they're all in play. Still not playing Lamar Miller, but Tannehill, Jarvis Landry, and Mike Wallace are all in play for me.
Yeah, Tannehill's price $6,900. Would you rather have him or Eli Manning at Jacksonville for $7,000?
I might like Tannehill a little bit more, just because again, I'm going back. I like Rashad Jennings in that game. Everyone certainly can go off, but that's just not really the Giants' style. They're not a team that likes to blow teams out of the water. So I think Tannehill has more upside than Eli Manning. It just comes down to whether or not you're going to use that price point in a cash game, in which case I don't really think either of them will make my cash game lineups this week, although it is early. But I think Tannehill's got a little bit more upside.
Yeah, I love Tannehill over Eli Manning. I love this Monday night matchup for Ryan Tannehill. I think he's going to have a great game. That's going to about do it tonight, guys. Again, I can't stress enough, if you want to play in this $600,000 Thanksgiving game on DraftKings, it's a $20 buy-in. Get in early, get in your tournaments, your entries now. It's going to be off the board early Thursday morning, and if you're looking to get in, 10 a.m. Eastern, you're going to be out of luck for sure. They'll probably put up a couple other big tournaments, I would suppose, as they fill. Beer, anything you want to say before we head on out of here?
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody out there, to you too. I hope everybody enjoys the day, and get your damn lineups built on Wednesday so you can just spend the time Thursday with family, friends. Don't be worried about getting lineups, plus these tournaments are going to be full anyway, so get it done Wednesday night. Enjoy the day. Hope everyone is safe out there. If you're traveling, be safe. And good luck. Some big tournaments out there. Time's running out to qualify for these live finals, so big weeks coming. Hope everybody does well out there. Enjoy the Turkey Day.
Boggs, any last words for the grinders? We've got 284 in chat. I don't know how many are watching our show. It's a lot of basketball talk. But anything you want to say to the 284 people watching and then all the people that are going to listen to us on the podcast this week?
I'll just say happy Thanksgiving and good luck.
I'll sign us off here, guys. Thanks for watching. Listen to us on the podcast. There is a kind of storm brewing up in the Northeast, so if you are traveling, have some safe travels. For my co-hosts, Beermakersfan and Boggslite, have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I'm BritDevine, and we out ya.
Yeah, we do.